What's going on, guys? So we're just out here for a walk this morning. Wanted to make a quick video kind of explaining some of the reasons that I film the way I do whenever I'm doing RV reviews, because I get a lot of questions and a lot of folks ask me if I can do things slightly different, and I wanted to take a moment and kind of talk to you all about why I film the way I do, and specifically why I may not do some of the things that you want me to do. So let's talk about that. Hang tight, I'll be right back. All right, so first and foremost, probably the number one requested thing that I do on the channel is to close the slides up on the RVs that I review to give you guys kind of an idea of what it would be like to try to move around the interior of an RV with the slides in. Now, the first thing I want to point out is whenever I'm out at a dealership lot, I want to make it as unbiased as possible. I don't want people to have any presumption that a dealership is paying me to go through their RVs and review them. And if they are paying me, I'll let you guys know, but 99.99% of the time, that doesn't happen. I think that's only happened one time where I actually flew up to Michigan and it was kind of a sponsored video. That being said, the vast majority of the times I'm out at dealership lots, I have an agreement with them, so I just basically have the ability to come out, film the RVs, give my honest feedback, my honest opinion of what I'm seeing, and what I'm able to see with RVs that are set out on a dealership lot already in rows or however they have them positioned. Most of the time, I don't go to the office, I don't talk to them, I basically hit the dealership lot and I start walking around finding units that I think are unique and units that I think you guys might want to actually take a look at, and essentially give you guys that feeling as if you're walking through an RV, but pointing out some things you may not readily see or things that might be standout features. Now, a lot of folks say, again, why don't you bring a booster box with you so you can pull slides in and see all that? Well, the main reason why is liability. First of all, dealerships position RVs very randomly throughout their lot. Sometimes there's some logistics to it and they know exactly how they want certain units positioned, but for the most part, they're just set out where they fit and they're kind of grouped by size or by model or by brand, things like that. But very rarely are they perfectly level. Very rarely have they gone through any type of PDI at that actual dealership. Most of the time they're brought in, they might be quickly cleaned up and then they're thrown out on the dealership lot. And a lot of times they're not going to have batteries inside of them, and they're just not going to be prepped for you just to hook up a battery box to. Now, I could wire a 7-way connector onto a quick plug and I could hook it up just like it's hooked up to a vehicle. But the problem I run into is because when I'm going out there, again, I'm just going out there to film RVs and I don't talk to anybody about it. I hit the dealership lot and I start finding RVs that I want to film. If I try to connect to their power and there's a power issue with that RV, or there's a problem, or maybe there was a PDI related issue, pulling in slides could actually cause damage. Putting out slides can cause damage. I don't want to modify how that RV is set up at all. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with the power. I don't want to do anything unless that RV is already hooked up to full power at that dealership lot. I'm still not going to pull the slides in or push it up because I just don't know what could, inadvertently happen if there's some type of an issue. We all know that there's a chance that whenever you get a new RV, that little things could happen. I don't want to be responsible for one of those little things happening at a dealership lot. Now, there are certain segments that I've done where I'm reviewing a specific unit that a dealership has out at their lot and it's connected to power and they're out there with me and they want to show off something or we're trying to showcase something. Well, if that's the case and I have one of their employees with me and we want to pull slides in, we want to push them out, we want to do things like that, well, then I'm fine with it because that's their prerogative if they want to take responsibility. But for me, again, bringing my own power out there, connecting it to an RV that I don't own, that may not even be really in the position to be connected to at that specific moment, may not be level, may have other issues. I mean, I may power it up and it's not the slides that have the issue. It might be a refrigerator or a microwave or a lighting fixture or some other type of wiring issue that I'm gonna expose whenever I connect power to it, and I'm going to cause damage, and I don't want to do that. So whenever I'm out filming, my number one objective is to try to get the interior as bright as possible by opening window shades, things like that, and filming it in its natural state, just like you would watch it or walk through it if you are looking at it yourself. And we all know when you're touring RV parking lots, you're not going to have power in the units. There's very few places. There's a few indoor places that run power to just about everything, but 9 out of 10 times, more like 99 out of 100 times, you're not going to have power going to a unit. So that's what I'm emulating in my videos. The second one is a lot of folks want to know why I don't focus on things that may be broken or damaged on a specific RV that I'm walking through. Well, that's a very easy one to answer. The reality is you're likely not going to get that specific unit that I'm filming. A lot of folks watch units that I filmed a year or two ago, and that's what they're referencing whenever it comes to buying a new unit. And the problem I would have in pointing out something that may be damaged or broken on a unit I'm walking through, or maybe I see sawdust or other things like that, the reason why I don't stop and focus on that is because your unit may not have that problem. Right? So let's say a door's broken, or a piece of trim is broken, or something inside of the unit is damaged. Some of that damage occurs at the factory, some of it occurs en route, some of it occurs when it actually gets to the dealership. I've seen plenty of times where a forklift operator is moving units around the lot and they scrape up the back, or they get inside of the unit and they're trying to clean something, they're carrying something around and they knock something over. I see that stuff happen all the time. And if I point it out in a specific RV that I'm walking through, again, that could have been done at that dealership. It could have been done by, the company moving it. It could have been done by a number of different people or different processes that got the RV from its manufacturing facility to where it's at now. And by focusing on it on the specific RV I'm reviewing, the chances that that specific issue is going to happen to the RV that you get or the one you're looking at is very low. So I don't focus on things that are unlikely to be universal across all of the brand's floor plans. Now, if it's a design issue, if it's like a door that doesn't close or open properly because they built something there that prevents it from working, well, then I'll point that out because that's a design issue. But if it's just a piece of crown molding that's loose, or a door that might not be properly secured or something like that, things like that I don't really point out, just because, again, it's not necessarily something that is going to impact the RV you look at when you go to a dealership lot. Most of the time it's just going to be something on the RV I'm walking through. Another question I get asked a lot is related to components. A lot of folks wonder why I don't call out components I don't like as much. For instance, most people know I'm not a fan of cable actuated or cable driven slides. I'm not really a fan of them, mainly because I've seen more, or I've heard and seen more issues occur with cable driven slides than any other slide mechanism. I know that may not be universal, and I know there's some YouTube channels out there that will tell you that it's the best slide system out there, and that's their opinion. I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong, and they may be right for all I know. But what I know out of my personal experience, as well as talking to viewers, a lot of folks who send me emails and questions and comments and tell me that my opinion on certain things is accurate or not accurate. But in my opinion, I'm not a fan of cable driven slides. But that being said, I'm not going to call it out in every video because there's just no need to. They work well on smaller, lighter slides. I don't like to see them on heavy slides. I think I've made that point clear numerous times. I have entire videos just talking about that, and I spend a lot of time talking about that whenever I do videos on components. But doing an RV review is not really the time to specifically stop and spend a lot of time talking about a component that I either like or don't like. I'll point it out. You can reference back in my other videos and see if it's something that's important for you to understand a little bit more about. Also, tires. So, I point out bad tires a lot, and I talk about tires as if they're something that are readily going to cook off and become some type of an issue for you if you get an RV with cheap tires. But I've morphed my message into one recently where I don't want people to think that leaving the dealership lot with cheap trailer tires is going to be the worst thing on earth. Most of the time they've traveled upwards of 1,000 miles to get to that dealership on those relatively cheap tires. 9 out of 10 times, if it's anything over 4,000 pounds, you're going to have radial tires. They're likely going to be a pretty cheap brand. A lot of RV manufacturers have switched to like Goodyear Endurance tires and Saloon tires, and just a number of pretty good EFG rated tires like the Sterling tire. Alliance uses it, Coachman uses it. They're good tires, and they're not tires that you really need to put a lot of effort into changing out because they're pretty high quality tires. But there's a lot of tires like Trailer King, Rainier, other brands that are absolutely considered to be kind of budget tires, and if you have those on your RV when it's new, if they're loaded up properly with the right amount of air and you don't have your RV overloaded and you don't have some type of pre-existing condition with your suspension on your trailer, they're probably going to be good for a couple thousand miles at least. I mean, they're probably going to be good for 5,000 to 10,000 miles, honestly. But in my opinion, I usually recommend changing them out after a few thousand miles. I know that in the past, I would say, you know what, change them out the minute you get the RV, but that's not necessarily something you need to do, and it's not something you need to spend your money on. You can spend some time shopping around, working up a budget so you can do things like that. The other area is the suspension. I talk a lot about, wanting RVs to have thicker shackle straps, wet bolts, things like that. And for me, that's just one of those other confidence-inspiring preventative things to where you put more robust components on your RV, such as tires and suspension, and it's one less thing you have to be as concerned about whenever you're towing. That's all it is. It gives you the peace of mind to know that the chance or the likelihood of that component failing has probably decreased by a magnitude of 10. It's likely gone down significantly, but not all the time, because you could get a really high-end tire with a really nice equalizer, really nice, components, and still have a component failure just because of a manufacturing defect or a broken weld, things like that. So you're not curing the problem, you're just reducing the risk. That's all it is. Another thing that I focus in on are thick baggage doors. I know I talk a lot about that, and a lot of folks say, why do you focus so much on thick baggage doors? Well, the reason why is because of the rigidity of that baggage door. Now, baggage doors are one of those things that are opened and closed on every RV trip you go on. It doesn't matter if it's a small day trip or if you're going to be gone for the weekend. You have to generally get something in and out of the baggage door. Baggage doors typically come in a couple different flavors. See, this is a very thin baggage door right here for propane, but it's still pretty robust because it has this longer style hinge right here and it doesn't twist and turn. This is a super lightweight door. I would not want this type of door as my main baggage door. It's fine for a propane door. It's robust. Again, it's not wobbling or anything like that. It works really well. Some manufacturers put really thick doors here for the propane door, which is fine as well. It's actually something I would prefer. But this is all open to the ground for ventilation, things like that. There's really no chance that this door is going to be a deterrent for really anything. It's just basically to cover up my propane tank. That being said, on your much larger baggage doors like this is a much thicker door and it makes it more robust. It makes it a little bit better insulated, but more importantly, it's going to make it better in terms of long-term dependability and reliability. I'm not going to have to worry about the door physically cracking itself. And I've shown you guys in some videos where I've opened up some doors and they bend so much that you're afraid they're probably going to bend or crack. And I've actually received pictures and videos from viewers who have shown me an item shifting inside of the baggage compartment, hitting the door and cracking the door. So having a thicker, more robust baggage door is one of those areas that I often use to judge if the manufacturer is installing a little bit better quality components, and sometimes components that you typically don't associate with being better quality, but things that can actually have a better function to them as well. So that's one of those things I typically talk about. LED lights, I've spent a lot of time talking about those. They pretty much last forever. The chance of them burning out, is very low unless, of course, they get water or something into them. Super bright, more intense, just a better light overall. They don't generate nearly as much heat or pull nearly as much power. Really great things, but the heat part of it, a lot of people actually like from incandescent bulbs because it can melt snow that might collect on them whenever you're traveling down the road. So there's something to think about. I talk some about pin boxes up front. I focus on really two different areas, a pin box that has suspension technology built into it and one that does not. If you don't have suspension technology built into your pin box, you may have it built into the hitch you're looking at in your truck. But one thing I like about lower end or cheaper pin boxes, like the ones that come on the Brookstone right here, is the fact that it's cheap. And if you just get the base model, it's not too expensive to just rip the thing off and throw something nicer on that you want. Not one that was chosen for you, but an actual suspension pin box that is something you've researched and you might presume is going to help you tow better, such as the Reese Goose box. This is a $1,500 hitch. I absolutely love it. The folks at Reese have been a big supporter of my channel, and I've been using their products going back for a long time. And, you know, but this may not be for everybody. Some folks may want like the Moride rubber pin box. Some folks may want a Lippert Rotaflex pin box, or, you know, a number of other products that are out there, Demco and other brands like that. So there are a lot of products out there, and if you research one and like it, I would rather remove, you know, a $200 pin box and throw something nice on, rather than remove, you know, an $800 Moride rubber pin box that was installed from the factory because I want to go to a goose box, because I paid for that pin box when I bought the RV. I paid for the original one. So by removing it, I'm removing money that I put into the RV already, and I'd rather remove the lowest amount of money possible rather than something that's already been customized. So I'm kind of a proponent of RVs coming with basic components in that sense. For me, oftentimes something like this is one of those areas where it's okay to get the more basic product with your RV, so you have that option later. And then, you know, talking about tires, a lot of people might say the same thing. Well, why not just get the cheapest tire and you put your own, you know, brand quality of tire on? Tires are one of those things that, you know, a good quality tire is a good quality tire. You know, Cooper makes a really good G-rated and H-rated tire now. You know, I'm a real big fan of these Continentals that I have on here. But at the end of the day, having a good tire on your RV is going to help in so many ways, and it's one of those things that manufacturers should just include. Now, finally, and this is going to be the last one for this segment, the lower drop frame right here. I talk about 10-inch versus 8-inch versus 6-inch drop frame. And if you don't know what the drop frame is, this RV has a 12-inch I-beam, and then below it right here, it actually drops down on this 10-inch I-beam that you can probably see right here. And that allows us to have all this extra storage because it drops down lower and it gives this storage compartment a flat floor. And I talk about 10-inch versus 8-inch versus 6-inch. And this is really an LCI thing, or Lippert, because they manufacture the frame, and you know, they design the frame based on how much of a load they feel the manufacturer is going to put on that specific frame. But I've seen in the past where some RVs, they just start adding so much weight to the RV in terms of upgrades that oftentimes you see frame-related issues because the manufacturer of the frame didn't know that the manufacturer of the RV was going to start putting so much stuff into it, and they start overloading components. And to help resist that, I like the structural rigidity you get from a 10-inch I-beam on your larger fifth wheels. If it's a smaller fifth wheel, not that big of a deal. And you rarely have drop frames on smaller fifth wheels. But on your larger ones, I like to see a 10-inch I-beam because it adds more strength, more rigidity, and it gives them the ability to do the things that they want to do on the interior while having a frame to actually be able to support it well. So I look for 10-inch I-beam frames. Some brands like Montana and Jayco run a lot of 8-inch drop beams. I know Jayco recently with like the North Point, I've been seeing a lot of 10-inch drop frames, which is really nice. But again, it's just something I look for. At the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is subjective. It's stuff that you may find more valuable than others, but you know, for me, I look for certain things. I look for rack and pinion or Schwintek slides. I look for 10-inch drop frames. I look for better quality tires, better quality suspension. The front pin box connection, not that big of a deal for me. Not that big of a deal to choose between electric or hydraulic leveling. Hydraulic is more powerful and it's faster. Electric works just fine for the most part. If you have a problem with either of them, it can be a headache, but most of the time it's pretty easy to figure out. You know, I look for little things like that. Solar panels, things like that, not a big deal to me. You can always add that stuff later. You can always add it based on your needs, things like that. Air conditionings, you know, I always want more whenever we're down here in South Texas, but in some parts of the country, you know, you could have one air conditioning on something like this and be just fine. So that's also pretty subjective. But I hope this video helped clarify some of the reasons why I go over certain things or talk about certain things, and I do certain things or don't do certain things whenever I'm filming, because, you know, I get a lot of questions about that stuff. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please leave a comment below. Take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.